sense is a lot of incidents don't get reported for lots of reasons. Do you have any sense, just like to talk about unreported aliens and so on, do you have any sense whether this represents 10%, 90%, 1%, and any intuition at all? How many incidents actually are going on an annual basis?
So I'd hate to speculate on that, but if you want my personal opinion, not DHS's opinion, my personal opinion, that's probably between 1% to 5% of all actual incidents. I mean, the world has changed. It's no longer if you're going to be attacked, it's when. And, you know, as you can see, you know, the public's opinion on that is really changing. A lot of people are worried about loss of reputation by reporting a breach. But it's not really the case anymore. I think that we're finding that public opinion is actually going up when you own up to your mistake, rather than finding out about it. They hate it when you find out that, well, they were breached a year, but they never told anybody. You know, it's really coming to, everybody makes mistakes. There's no perfect network out there. There's no silver bullet that's going to save you. It's all about, you know, hoping that you have the incident response plan in place to be able to make it better quicker. Business continuity has replaced, you know, the protection. You're not going to stop everything. You know, and we realize that, especially now that you've got nation states entering into the game. They just have unlimited resources. You know, you can't devote as many resources they have to that. So you just got to hope that for the best. But I would say that's probably about 1% to 5% if I had to make a guess.
1% to 5% or 1/5?
1% to 5%.
Oh, wow.
I would say that there's a lot of incidents that are never reported.
Okay.
There we go. Quick question for Sid and then one for the panel. When you showed the plan to acquire a solution that was projecting out 3 years, was that supported by an already an approved budget? Were those items budgeted, or is that just a nice?
No, we didn't ask that. No, we just asked, do you plan, you're using it now, do you plan to use it in 1 year, do you plan to use it in 3 years? So a very good thing, I probably should have made it that way. Okay. I mean, but no, actually though, just to be clear, I mean, we did have comments in our survey that said, listen, like when I ask about if you use it, for example, are you really using it? I'm not asking, does your company, have they bought it? I'm saying, are you actually actively using this technology? So it was filtered that way, but not by buying, which I know is the supplier interest, I know.
Oh, yeah.
But it's one of the comments, most of the growths in that are pretty consistent with what we've gotten in our market studies too, just so you know.
Question for the panel. So one area or trend we didn't hear about would be relevant to this concept that everybody's a target. It's not if, but when. And we have hundreds of thousands of businesses in the United States and manufacturing location. Can everybody be a target? So as that message goes up to the executive suite, they say, well, there should be evidence that we're a target. We should be able to have a situational awareness on what's coming at us today and security intelligence on what's coming at us tomorrow, but we didn't see any trending there. You would think there would be a huge market now for threat awareness and intelligence. So do you have any insight into how that's being adopted?
Yeah, Mike, just to make a comment on that. So I think we have to really think about what target means. We can talk about the advanced persistent threats and the nation states, and those are fun to talk about unless you're affected by them. However, you know, I think one thing that is often missed is the unintentional things that happen within organizations that expose them or cause disruption, damage, or destruction. So, you know, what I'm getting at here is that indeed, you know, I believe that every organization is at risk, but it might not be that advanced persistent threat or nation state. Every company that has an objective of staying in business, of staying profitable, of serving customers and interacting in a supply chain is at risk. And I think, you know, Clint had brought up earlier the insider risk element that still is quite prevalent. So I don't have a particular data point to share with that, but just carefully think about what target means, because it's not always this group of bad guys that are well funded that actually makes a company a target.
Yeah, I think that along those same lines, I mean, if you think about, we all love telemarketers. Are you the target of the telemarketer, or is it just a robocaller that's going through a list and they're hoping that you pick up an answer? When we talk about target, a lot of times what we're talking about is that it's a automated system that says, are you vulnerable? Will you pick up the phone? Will you answer? And I'm coming after you. They're looking for the low-hanging fruit. Everything is automated these days. Yes, we're seeing a lot more of what they call whaling or watering hole attacks, where they're saying, even then it's not a particular company they're coming after. They're saying, hey, we understand that hospitals have a vulnerability, that they always have to keep technology around a lot longer than it probably should have been around in order to keep things operating. What if we were we know that they all like to go to this particular website, or they all go here and check this from time to time. What if we compromise that website and then we can infect everybody who visits that website? I mean, that's what we're looking at, is the target is a group of businesses or a certain industry, so they're coming after you. I mean, with the websites that they have on the dark web there, I can type in saying, hey, I want to go after everybody who has manufacturer Y, model number X. I want to see, because I know the default password's admin. Just show me a list of everybody who has those connected to the internet. Boom, here's a list. And I'm just going to target those machines. So it might be a machine-based thing. They don't care what company you actually work for. They're going to infect you, and then they'll figure out what you do and how they can best utilize. That's why I'm saying they're sharing the information. Once one person compromises you, they might give it over to a completely different group in order for them to actually monetize what you're doing. Or they might just want access to your server so that you can be a botnet for them to either host information for other things that they're doing or to attack other people. And we deal with that a lot even is, hey, your cybersecurity program talks about, this is what you do if you discover an incident. But what if somebody came to your door, knocked on your door and said, hey, I'm from the Secret Service or I'm from the FBI. We found your information on somebody else's system. And you look at the information, it's really your information. What do you do then? You have no indicators of compromise to your system. You don't know how the data got out there. You're starting from scratch to investigate that. What would you do with that cyber response? And most organizations don't have, they've been thinking internally for so long, they don't start thinking externally. Or, hey, we notice your IP addresses are attacking this person over here or trying to exploit this over here. Now you know that your machines are doing something. Now you got to figure out, did somebody compromise that? Is it an insider thing? There's so many areas, it's impossible to really narrow down your focus to one thing.
We got one more question, and that's it,
Okay,
okay?
go ahead.
Then we'll go into break.
Thanks. I wonder if anyone from the panel can answer whether or not there is any correlating data that would correlate cybersecurity maturity models to operational or fiscal performance of a manufacturing enterprise. In even the most remedial sense, to show that correlation, or even better yet, causation, to make it in a, from a fiscal performance.
So, Mark, 73%, I think 73.2% of statistics are made up on the spot, right? Something like that.
73.24.
Thank you. I don't have that data, but I can tell you that there isn't a conversation that I have with an individual or a company that doesn't circulate around all these words that end in ITY, like availability, integrity, productivity, efficiency, kind of. You see profitability, and I have watched, and I think conversations have evolved over time to recognize that a disruption has consequences that can be measured in dollars. Damage to equipment can be measured in dollars. And what is interesting in recent times is how ransomware has very quickly come on the radar because of those cascading consequences as well. So I know I'm not directly answering your question, but I think that companies today aren't just looking at security as something that's abstract, that is difficult to comprehend, and therefore we're going to ignore it. I think that there's recognition that part of being sensitive to risks and variables that can affect operations that it makes sense to invest that and consider it as part of, the risk assessment process. The same way that safety continues to, raise in its importance level, because we know the consequences are both, affecting humans and then, all those other ITY ending elements. I think security is now at a point where we can have open conversations, and people will embrace having a conversation as opposed to putting their head in the sands. So did I not answer your question?
I will just add in, so DHS has partnered up with Carnegie Mellon University to do most of our assessments, and they develop, they use the CERT maturity models. And so if you send me an email, I can probably get back to them and they can give you, but I can tell you that on our maturity model that we use, the industries that score higher on the maturity model have better operations and have more efficiency in their operations. Because what happens is you have an operations team and you're doing this, and you build a security team which mirrors them. But over time, operations you're going to add new businesses, you're going to change the way you do things. Operations moves this way. And unless you kick your security team over, they're going to keep continuing on this trend. So we identify where those gaps are. A mature organization has the processes, what we call continuous monitoring of your policies and processes to keep those two aligned. And that's where efficiency comes in. That's where you get you're operationally at your best, is when security is matching what you're trying to do, rather than everybody saying, well, security's holding me up. Well, that's because the security mission's over here and the operational mission is over here. You have to narrow that gap so that you have more operational efficiency.
Is that the only thing I would say? Well, first, I'm a Carnegie Mellon guy, so thank you for that. I was glad to hear him say that. But the other thing was that, I don't know, the way I interpret your question a little different, but certainly I think there's data out there that shows that certain industries are more serious about cybersecurity, have done more for defenses and things like that, which to me is kind of related to operational issues. At least in my mind, I am. The oil and gas industry, the chemical industry, the power industry, certainly investing a lot. I'm always surprised, but lately I've been seeing a lot more for discrete manufacturing, because I don't think they've been real big on it lately. As you mentioned, they can get data and they have one flat network. A lot of other ones are getting more serious about it. But anyhow, there's that kind of relationship. I don't know that there's data on that, but I think there is, in the sense of who's investing in it. In our data, for market studies, the money's being spent by the power industry, the oil and gas industry, chemical industry for the most part. I don't know if that helps. We've got to have a break, so everybody here, our next session starts in 10 minutes. So I'm not pushing you. I apologize that we overran here, but
You can't stay here.